What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the MMA Junkie Preview Show. I am your host, Farah Hannoun, and I am being joined by our analyst extraordinaire, Dan Tom, who's going to help me break down all things UFC 320. Arguably the best pay-per-view of the year. I don't know. What do you think? This card is pretty nice.
I don't know. I actually ranked last pay-per-view with Chimaev and DDP above it overall. And maybe you could argue on top, although obviously that pay-per-view didn't finish exciting. I still got to give it some love, UFC 319. But yes, UFC 320 is almost as good as that killer intro. Shout out Farah and Goes and everybody behind the scenes at Junkie. That was impressive. I don't know how long you've been rocking that one, but it looked really good for UFC 320.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, well, I always joke about this, but almost everybody has a Wikipedia page, so that's got to be good, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Good saying. I like that.
Yeah. Well, we got top of the bill, we got a light heavyweight title fight rematch between Magomed and Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. I'm going to start off with this. Was this the right fight to make, in your opinion, for Ankalaev's first title defense?
You know, I'm not a big rematch person. Everybody knows that. But, you know, this is a kind of a sensible one. We've seen this before with title fights, with this division, and within the context and nuances. It was a close fight. Obviously, Poatan Pereira is a very, popular fighter. He was a Captain Save a Show, if you will, for the UFC in 2024. And he's got a lot of fans because of it. So, there are rightful and sensible reasons on all sides of this rematch. So I can't complain, Farah.
Yeah, and looking at the landscape at 205, did you think like someone was kind of snubbed? Or because a lot of these guys have been, I mean, Olberg just got the win, right? So they will have already booked Ankalaev by then. But a lot of those guys already fought for the title, right? Recently as well.
That's true. I don't think it's as logjam as other divisions, right? I mean, I think middleweight has a more interesting logjam, maybe just below it. But yeah, we're getting there with light heavyweight too. Especially, it doesn't help, like you mentioned, Carlos Olberg puts on a fantastic, short, but a highlight performance they can certainly sell for his market. I think that gives him a leg up. But I'll be honest, with all the good fights on 320, you've got, which I'm sure we'll talk about with Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Rountree. I mean, how does that fight not be exciting and produce somebody to get excited about regardless of how it goes? So you're right. We could have a conundrum here.
Yeah, because I was asked about this at overreaction time, and Simon posed it to me like, Olberg is basically a lock. And I'm like, I don't know, because like if Yuri usually wins in wild and spectacular fashion, and if Ankalaev beats Pereira, yeah, if Pereira beats Ankalaev, then probably not. But because we always, when we look at these like technically efficient fighters, we're like, who's going to beat them? We're like, it's going to need someone wild. It's going to need, and that's what a lot of people felt like with Hamzat and Dricus. Like it needed someone who's a bit weird and wild like Dricus. Well, obviously he had no answer for the grappling, but it's same thing for Ankalaev because he's so polished everywhere. You think like if he beats Pereira, like what's it going to take to beat him? You would think a wild style, perhaps like Yuri Prochazka, should he beat Khalil Rountree.
Yeah, I think that is much more interesting. And from a stylistic analysis, I got to say you're on point there, because there's some matchups where I don't think would be, as sexy. Like if we would, if we shake up all these names, right? And like, for example, if we do end up with, if Simon's right, for example, great shot there. Because, if I'm a betting man, I would say I would lean toward Olberg too, even if there's a big performance. But let's say Olberg does get it and Ankalaev retains, for example. I think that matchup would be toxic for the business. It would be toxic for fans. It would be very boring. But to your point, like, you start, getting guys like, especially a Yuri in the mix. It's so easy to get behind, both from a fan perspective or fighting perspective, right? And you're right, Farah. He's definitely going to be, interesting, more interesting matchups, for the fighters you highlighted there. So something to watch for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not ruling out Khalil Rountree. We'll talk about that matchup later on. I was just talking about the matchmaking here. But let's start off with the main event. The first fight. Do you think it was closer than people made it out to be? I mean, Pereira thought... I don't think he said it in a way like I got robbed, but maybe he was saying that while I was fighting, I felt like I did enough. I don't think he really stressed on it, not to hate on him, thinking that he's delusional or anything like that. I thought for sure Ankalaev won, but I'm sure you've gotten a chance to rewatch the fight. Was it closer than you thought when you watched it again and maybe again?
It was as close as I remembered, and to be fair, I did predict that it would be a close. In my prediction, I picked Pereira, but I said this is going to be a fight that we're going to be debating, kind of control versus power. Now, in Ankalaev's credit, he did much better in the striking than even people like myself, who already thought highly of him. He even exceeded those expectations and got the bigger moments as well. So I don't think it was a contentious scorecard at all, Farah. I'm more aligned with you there. However, I do like to point out that, competitive and close aren't necessarily the same thing. It was definitely a competitive fight.
Yeah.
How close was it? I don't like using the oxymoron close but clear, but you know what? This one could have been a close but clear because I think it was a clear decision for Ankalaev, to your point. But I also think it was close enough to use that descriptor of close. And the odds are not saying that, though. The odds are actually wider this time in the favor of Ankalaev, though.
Yeah, and let's jump over the odds. Good opportunity there. According to BetMGM, we've got Ankalaev as a -250 favorite over Pereira, who's a +200 underdog. Surprised by those odds, or do you think they're pretty accurate?
I'm not surprised, actually. And, because, again, Magomed Ankalaev, he's really, even the things you can critique him, the guy really is hard to get out of there. He's a proven winner. And, we saw him win, fairly clearly the last time out. So, and Pereira is getting older. Ankalaev is the younger product. We know those things definitely factor into the predictions, especially from the betting side of it. So, yeah, I think that's about right.
Well, I'll look at some individual odds. We got Ankalaev +200 by knockout, +1,000 by submission, and +125 by decision. For Pereira, we've got +900 decision, +3,500 submission, and +300 knockout. What do you like here? First off, was your pick Ankalaev or Pereira?
So I went back and forth. I feel like the sensible pick, back to the odds, it is Ankalaev. However, if it was close and if Pereira was dealing with an injury that's not been confirmed, right? And you never know, but he wasn't throwing his jabs or right hands barely at all in that fight compared to other southpaws, Farah. So I actually feel like if it was even if we want to argue about close, even if it was competitive, like we were just talking about, right? And we're going to see a better Pereira, and Pereira on paper has the more adjustments he can make on paper. Okay. As a betting man, I can't help but like that underdog odds. But another angle I took, you mentioned the props there. I actually like fight ends by KO because, again, Ankalaev, as we saw, if that round 2 was a little longer, could have finished Pereira. Pereira, for as powerful as he is, he can be finished. And Farah, you cover this sport for years. You know as well as I do when I say this, rematches seldom play out the same way in MMA. And not just by who wins, even the method. A lot of the times it'll go to the decision the first time and they've got a feel for each other. And we'll see a more definitive fight usually the second time. So that's what I'm counting on here more.
Yeah, and because when you look at the first fight, obviously it was a big confidence boost that Pereira defended all 12 takedowns. But at the same time, he was on his back foot a lot. He was hesitant because he knows the grappling is going to come, and that kind of opened up the striking for Ankalaev. So if you're Alex Pereira, or you kind of need to go for it a little bit more, right? Now, you mentioned the hand injury because I think that was the rumor that it was a hand injury. Obviously, if that was the case, that plays a factor, but he kind of has to go for it a little bit, right? Like, even if it results in him getting taken down, because especially if this fight comes down to control versus damage, Pereira didn't really have those significant strikes that we're used to from him, right, in the first one. So do you think like the goal here or the game plan here for him should be to kind of go for it, take more risks, even if it means him getting taken down?
I think so. And in fact, that analysis you just gave, Farah, was my reasoning for the play, because it factors into the betting.
Don't know if we lost Dan Tom here. Goes, you can help me out? Or did we lose me?
I think maybe we did lose.
Yeah, we lost Dan Tom. Okay, not me. I was trying to figure that out.
I think he's back, though. I think he's back. So
all right. Yep.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. I disappeared out. I was just gonna say your analysis was perfect. It actually played into the prop that I like and I'm on personally, where fight ends by KO. Because you're right, the context we are entering in, the adjustment is to be more aggressive, but that aggression will also open up more opportunities for Ankalaev to where, Pereira will have more confidence from defending the takedowns, but Ankalaev will also have more confidence from standing up to the leg kicks and, showing that, hey, maybe I can stand up to that power, right? And I got to compliment you, Farah. I'm so curious of what your basketball analysis is, because your MMA analysis always impressed me, genuinely. And I know, like, I got to imagine, like, not saying MMA is not good, but I know basketball is like your home thing. So I'm like, oh, she must be just so killer to talk to and listen, break down the sport.
No, I appreciate that. Maybe in the future we can squeeze in some like NBA playoffs or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, like going back to this fight. So for you, feel like we're gonna see a finish here, right? That's kind of like if you would make a bet and a knockout finish from either side. Let's revisit those odds again. So we got Ankalaev by knockout would be plus 200, and Pereira by knockout would be plus 300. Which one would you lean towards more?
Probably the Ankalaev knockout. If there was a gun in my head, I would probably go with that one. But yeah, I'm more confident. Let's just say I'm more confident that this ends inside the distance than I am confident in picking a side.
Okay, gotcha. And how about Pereira's demeanor? A lot of people have spoken, like, made that like a factor, like he's uncharacteristically maybe animated. I don't know, could all be just fight build-up. Ankalaev has kind of upped his trash talk game, whether it's his manager or Chat GPT or whoever it is, but he seems to really be enjoying that aspect of the game. So I understand, is getting a reaction out of Pereira. Do you think that stuff will have any impact whatsoever? And what was it that he said at the face-off? Like somebody translated, like, I don't want to go back to the tire shop. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely intense. I usually try not to play too much into that. I try to stick to the evidence as an analyst, what's going on inside the octagon as opposed to outside. But this is a great point to bring up, and I talked about this with our guys George and Goes over on Spinning Backclick. Shout out to our guys over at MMA Junkie Radio, where whenever you see fighters, I always bring it back to Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey, that classic example. And we saw Ronda almost get out of character with the aggression. It's not abnormal to see fighters get aggressive, right? Like some fighters, like the Jeremy Stevens and Mike Perrys of the world, they're doing that every time. That's nothing normal. It's when we see them get out of character. That's what tends to catch my eye, Farah, if that makes sense. And when you go back and look at those samples, like the Rousey and Holly Holm fight, you also I don't want to say you see the fighter lose, but you definitely see a weird performance sometimes, for better or worse. So yeah, that part actually kind of worries me as a Poetan fan and backer here.
Where does Pereira go if he loses to Ankalaev, in your opinion?
That's another worry, and perhaps why people are maybe thinking that his time has come, because not just he's older or whatever. We got to remember, Pereira didn't start even doing any combat sports until 21 years old, folks. So there is a slightly different mileage case there. Although he has accrued quite a bit of miles, but he has the option to go up to heavyweight and have fun fights if he wants to, or he could just have fun fights at light heavyweight as well. I think he's kind of earned that right for himself. And not to mention, I hate to, even talk about I don't want to say organizations or influence monsters, feels like more of an accurate descriptor, right? There's all these celebrity boxing places that you can go to and he can get massive paychecks. So I think he'll be okay either way here.
So you think in terms of like the title picture and stuff like that, if he loses?
It's tough. Ankalaev could be he could be that guy that stays there for a while, and now you're 0-2 to that guy, right? And Pereira, by his own accounts, we know that we don't know how he ever made middleweight to begin with. We know that's not in the future, right? But now he's saying he's having trouble making light heavyweight, right? Like, so yeah, even as a backer and somebody picking him to win here, if he doesn't, Farah, like, I absolutely am not. I'm not downing on him, but I'm not too high on his title aspirations in this division should Ankalaev show out here.
Now, let's be real. It's not like heavyweight he has this crazy path, right, to go through. So who knows? Why not go chase after a third belt? It doesn't exactly have too much to go through.
Yeah, you're going to get promotion. There's not a lot of contests. And, UFC loves promoting the baddest men in the world whenever they can. Bigger the better for the UFC. So, yeah, why not? No weight cuts.
Down again?
Yep, I'm good in here.
Lost down again.
I'm good.
But yeah, to the point of speaking, where Pereira and where Ankalaev go from here. Obviously, Ankalaev hasn't fought the majority. Are you back? There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. I hear you the whole time. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, so Ankalaev, in terms of Ankalaev, a lot of fresh faces for him, right? But do you think if Pereira wins, we get a trilogy, or do you think Ankalaev's out of that title picture right away?
I think we can get a trilogy, but I don't know if we get it right away. Like the UFC loves to do it, so why not? But they also love extending their stars, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And before we talk about the co-main event, I want to talk about Yuri and Khalil Rountree, just because it's a good segue, and we're still talking about the light heavyweight division. But man, what a fun fight! I mean, John Wood talked to Georgian Goes and basically guaranteed violence. Is there even a way we could jinx this fight? I don't think so, right? Get a boring decision. I don't think that's possible.
I don't think so. I'm with John Wood. That was a good interview by Georgian Goes as usual. I always make sure, by the way, folks, part of my analysis, I'm not just crushing tape. I always go to the MMA Junkie YouTube where you're on right now, and we've got plenty of good interviewers. Georgian Goes, Farah does great stuff. We got Danny Segura, Mike Bond. So, make sure you're checking out those interviews, folks. But yeah, it was interesting. I totally agree with John Wood about the violence on this one, which is strange because John Wood, he coaches Khalil Rountree. If you listen to Khalil Rountree, what does he say? And he's like, I don't want to engage in the brawl, and this and that. So some people are actually being contrarian here and calling for this fight to go to decision. I'm a contrarian, Farah, but I don't know if I'm that much of a contrarian. I think this one's violence all day. I think even if Khalil doesn't want it to be as crazy, I think Yuri makes things crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Yuri always, it's like when he fought Rakic, right? Rakic is always very technical. He's smooth. Like, even when he lost to Ankalaev, it's like it's like a decision loss, like outstruck. But with Yuri, we saw like a very aggressive Rakic. And because Yuri tends to be a little bit hittable, so you get a little overexcited, right? And it's almost like this is Yuri's game plan. He likes to lure you into these wild fights, and he just throws something out of you. Like, he kind of out-wilds you, if that makes sense. So I think he's going to try. Because I feel like a technical battle, standing from the outside, I got Khalil Rountree all day in that. But I think the wilder it gets, like mixing in a bit of clinch and spinning attacks and stuff, that's Yuri's world.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't disagree with that analysis at all. That being said, I do find myself siding with Rountree here. I especially like him at the underdog price. I feel like this fight is closer to pick 'em odds. I don't know if either fighter should be a big favorite in this kind of a fight, but I do like Khalil's technical approach. And although Yuri has beaten the last two southpaws, he takes a lot of leg kicks, body shots, and a disproportionate amount of left-sided strikes. So I still think that's a bad look for him. He officially stands 2-2 against UFC level southpaws. Of course, those losses came pre-UFC to Bojan Velichkovic and Abdul Karim Edilov, who I don't believe is no longer with us. I think that guy is deceased now. But he's 2-2. Yuri is against UFC level southpaws. For all the stats hounds out there,
he is a slight favorite at -200. Rountree's a +165 underdog. And we've got, maybe because Yuri, like, I guess his resume, you can argue, is a little bit better in terms of the skins on his wall in the UFC, maybe from an experience standpoint, like at the higher title picture level. Maybe that's why he's a favorite. But Prochazka by knockout's at -110. Prochazka by submission +1,000. And then we've got Prochazka by decision at +400. Rountree by decisions at +550, Rountree submission +3,500, and then Rountree by KOs +300. So what do you like here?
I mean, if you're going for shots in the dark there, I mean, I like the Rountree side. Obviously, you're getting solid plus money there. Whereas Yuri, he's just as likely to get knockouts, obviously, in my opinion, but you're getting much less value on that money from the knockout prop to his money line. You said his submission prop was +1,000. If you're punting on wild big numbers, you could do a lot worse than that. Khalil has gotten better with his takedown defense, and I imagine his grappling has gotten better. But that's obviously, the path for a guy against Khalil. And although it was a body shot that hurt Glover in about round 3 that he never recovered from, that he credits the loss to, Yuri did officially submit a black belt and Glover to Sheriff for what it's worth. So we know he has those skills. So that number jumped out when you said that +1,000, Farah.
Interesting. And I guess the Yuri, what was it, +110 for the knockout. I think that's more to do probably because Rountree's losses have mostly come by knockout. I think 3 of his 6 have come. With Pereira, it's kind of like worn down type of knockout, not like a clean one. And obviously, if you go way back to the Johnny Walker one or Janko Talabal, he was such a different fighter then, right? Can't really take too much into account there. And as for Prochazka, his losses, obviously 4 of them by knockout, 4 out of his 5. I think actually he's never lost by decision. It's all been finishes. Alex Pereira twice, and then you have to go way back down to King Mo and all the way back down the fights that you mentioned. So yeah, these I don't think I would take too much into account there, but it's just Yuri obviously takes quite a bit of damage. People kind of criticize his defensive ability, like his hands are down, and you always see these memes, right, with his hands down and him taking a shot. And against a guy like Rountree, but Rountree is a guy that kind of tries to wear you down eventually. That's what's interesting to me. He's not really a one punch. He can, obviously, he's got the power, but he'll chop you down, like the leg kicks, the body kicks. So what do you feel like his key to victory is here against Prochazka? And is there a way he can avoid the wildness that Yuri brings?
Yeah, I think, his counters and the body work is going to be, real key. Really all 3 levels, something that Jamal Hill, the Yuri's last fight, a southpaw, Jamal Hill doesn't really throw leg kicks and can be leg kicked, which is why I picked Khalil to beat him, specifically because of the leg kicks. And if you look at Yuri, his success against Jamal Hill, he matched that southpaw stance because he really didn't have to worry about leg kicks or anything coming back. He just really had to worry about punches and punches to his head primarily, right? Whereas Rountree, you have all 3 levels, and you show that same stance against Rountree, you're going to give him those leg kicks. So I just think whether it's the form of leg kicks, body kicks, or headshots, I think just being ready to counter Yuri for these mistakes, that's going to be key. Just countering and keeping composed. Countering, keeping composed. A finish shows up, it does. If not, just keep countering and staying composed. I got to imagine that is Khalil's game plan here.
How about Yuri? I don't even know, this is going to sound like maybe offensive or probably incorrect to say. I don't even know if he comes in there with a game plan. I feel like he just fights.
Yeah, he does. He definitely comes out and he's more of a feel guy. He likes to practice his techniques and stuff to make him a better warrior. He takes his profession very seriously. But yeah, he's not exactly a game plan guy. I was just watching, I don't know if you're familiar with a famous American movie from the 90s, Con Air, with Nicolas Cage. And they take the convicts take over a plane. And John Malkovich, Cyrus Grissom, he puts a gun to the captain's head. And the pilot of the plane goes, "If you kill me, who's going to fly the plane?" And John Malkovich says, "I don't think that far ahead." That's Yuri Prochazka. He's got the gun out, the action's going. You're like, "Yuri, what are you doing?" He's, "I don't think that far ahead." He doesn't even know. So to your point, it's not an insult. I think that's just who Yuri is.
Yeah, I think for Khalil, the clinch is going to be very important here, just to kind of slow down Yuri's craziness, because he'll throw everything at you and he'll take a lot to give back. Like, he doesn't mind this type of fight, whereas Khalil, we know he excels when he's outstriking you from the outside, like the success he had against Alex Pereira early. So I think if you're Khalil, the clinch is going to, especially that he comes from the Muay Thai background, right? Like, the clinch is going to help him out a lot there. Granted, I know that he got knocked out by Johnny Walker in the clinch. I think some of his knockout losses were there. So that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe it's better that's in the big cage. So maybe the clinching and, those opportunities maybe will be less. Maybe they got more space to move around, the full court instead of the half court, right? Which is, the half court would be the apex cage.
Literally. Or that hoop they put in those Vegas suites, that.
Oh yeah. You're not even playing. You're almost not even playing the same game at a certain point, right? When the environment changes, right? So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What are the chances we see a spinning back elbow knockout this card? Maybe from you.
Oh my God, I don't know. I feel like, is this the year of the spinning back elbow fighter? Like, is it like every other week? Like, we're voting every vote to the month that Mike Bond sends out in our chat, right? For Junkie, like, there's like at least one spinning elbow every month now, right?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people might disagree with me. I think Sergio Pettis is number 1 right now. That was
crazy.
That was great. Just A, he was losing, and B, just those weird movement that happened right before. It's like that was as out of nowhere as you can get. That's my front runner, actually. I know he has some
Yeah, I know. I hate reacting right away because there's that recency bias. But you know
Bias.
what? Gun to my head, I'm right there with you, Farah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I'm sure people are going to disagree with us. They'll either go Laurel Murphy, maybe. But still, I mean, Sergio was losing that fight. I think at one point
Yeah.
he was like, what? Someone threw out a stat there, like minus 5,000, or a favorite Magomedov was at one point or something
That's
after the fight.
crazy.
Yeah. And the way he just pulled that off. But yeah, anyway, I'm going off topic. So I was thinking spinning back elbow. I'm like, if there's one guy I can bet on this card that will put it off, it's probably Yuri, right?
Yeah, right.
He's
Yeah,
done it
that's
before.
true. That's
Dominic
true.
Reyes
Very
one
true.
was very, very scary. But let's talk about the co-main event. A lot of people looking at it as their main event in terms of the intrigue. Obviously, we've already seen Pereira and Ankalaev, but Merab Dvalishvili looking to notch his third, I think, looking to become the 8th fighter in UFC history to have 3 title defenses in the year. Takes on Corey Sandhagen. He's a minus 450, pretty big favorite against Sandhagen, who's a plus 340 underdog. I think based off of what we've seen from Rob, the stylistic matchup and everything, I don't think that's unfair of a stat line. What about you?
I don't know, but unfair. It's unsurprising.
Yeah.
The only reason why I don't want to use unfair because it makes sense for all the reasons you said. I don't disagree there. I just ultimately believe. Spoiler alert! I am picking the favorite here, but I ultimately believe that this fight not just could be, that it will be more competitive than what the odds are indicating. I feel like Corey Sandhagen is a quiet live dog. I don't know why, Fada. I'm getting the Bilal Mohammed versus Jack Della Maddalena vibes over here.
Interesting. Well, we'll get more into it, but Corey, I think what's good for Corey, he said it. He said he's never, well, outside of Umar, of course, but he said Merab's never fought a grappler like me. He's like, all the guys that he's fought have been strikers. I mean, he fought Henry Cejudo, he fought Umar, so I don't know what he was talking about. Maybe he was thinking Sean O'Malley in his head because he fought Sean O'Malley twice. Right. But yeah, I don't know how accurate that is. But I will say this about Corey Sandhagen is he's not really afraid to engage in the grappling. Like when someone shoots at him, he'll meet him in the middle. And I think he spoke about this a lot where it's like, no, I need to go for it even more, be even less afraid. But I think he's someone who doesn't really backpedal. Like he'll engage because obviously he's got some slick jiu-jitsu and stuff. But sometimes when you get a little too ambitious on the ground, you will end up on your back for quite a bit. And you don't want to do that with a guy like Merab who will shoot relentlessly. But yeah, I mean, you hear these guys talk and you want to be, I mean, Corey's someone I've been interviewing probably since his UFC debut, and it would be quite the story, but he does have quite a bit of recent losses that make you think, like, what would make me think that he's going to win? Like, he can catch Merab, that's for sure, but is there a world, in your opinion, where we see him stuff a lot of those takedowns, hurt Merab, land the more significant strikes and win a decision? Is there a world you see that, or do you feel if a Sandhagen wins, it's got to be him catching him with something?
No, I could see him actually winning multiple ways. You know, he could catch him via the flying knee that he caught Frankie Edgar with on the way down. It could be with a body shot. We've seen Merab hurt to the body before, right? At the end of that first Sean O'Malley fight, other fighters have found success. Umar had some success going to the body early against Merab. And Corey Sandhagen is a really good body puncher, and even guys with really good chins or cardio, we've seen that the right liver shot can do. You know, maybe he jumps on a submission. I don't know if I see him defending takedowns despite his improved wrestling. I know Corey Sandhagen has been the little more relevant film reference. He's been like Willem Dafoe from the Spider-Man movie meme, where he's like, I'm a bit of a wrestler myself, you know. That's kind of been his selling line, but it's true to your point, Fada. He will go out there. He won't back down. And I think those leg locks we saw, right, both in victory in Figueiredo in his last fight, as well as defeat, he was able to pop out TJ Dillashaw's knee in a very competitive and close fight, right, when they fought. He's had those leg locks in his pocket, and Merab, you know, he's getting submissions now, but he's not exactly a game over grappler. People are comparing, oh, well, he trained with Aljamain. That must mean he can finish him just like, no, that's not how it works, folks. You don't train with people and you have their superpowers, right? Or anything like that. I mean, Merab Dvalishvili, for as great as he is, what makes him great? It's his stamina, it's his fighting spirit, it's all these things, right? But he's not the most technical guy, right? And for the things that make him good, they're also the things that bring him into a lot of trouble. I mean, we are talking about the guy who films himself diving headfirst into an ice pond, head first. You know, are we going to trust this guy to defend intricate leg locks and doing all the leg lock encyclopedia knowledge that 99% of fighters don't in general, right? Is he going to do it? So Corey could submit him, but he also could get some scorecards. Merab has been a bit better about doing damage, but we know the criteria. If you're familiar, Farah, you've seen it, right? For the last 5 years, steadily, it's been inconsistent, of course, but less control, more damage. That's the main thing of the criteria. And Merab, he's really good at getting the optics, even if he doesn't have the damage. In his fight versus Umar, that I honestly scored for Umar. I think you could make an argument for a 4-1 Umar scorecard out there if you're not getting taken away by the optics or overly doing the damage where you're like, oh, but Merab landed one right hand, and the one right hand is the best shot in the round. That's who decides the winner, right? Spoiler alert, folks, that does not decide the winner, or it should not. So, yeah, sorry to be long-winded there, but there are plenty of ways that Corey Sandhagen can win the fight, which is why, Farah, despite officially picking Merab to win, these numbers are really too high for, a degenerate like me, a poor man like me to do much with. I like the plus money to amplify my numbers. And I actually took some plus money on the Sandhagen points handicap, which means if you take the points handicap in a 5-round fight, we need at least the judges to give 2 48-47s and another judge to give Corey Sandhagen 1 round. That's the minimum, meaning Corey Sandhagen can lose the fight so long as 2 of the judges give him a minimum of 2 rounds and 1 of the judges give him 1 round. You cash your ticket. Now, if he wins the decision, you still cash your ticket. Now, if Corey submits Merab, you cash your ticket. Now, if Corey knocks out Merab, you cash your ticket. The only way you don't cash your ticket is if Corey gets finished or it's a complete washing, like 50-45s across the board for Merab. That's basically the dynamic there. I hope that made sense. That's the angle I feel best about for this fight, honestly.
Very interesting. No, I get what you mean, and I think because what I alluded to earlier, that Corey's going to go for it. This kind of reminds me of like the Pettis brothers, what we just saw from Sergio.
Yeah.
Like this isn't his first Hail Mary knockout. He had it against Kyoji Horiguchi, and that's what and you look at Anthony Pettis' title run, same thing. He'd be losing some of those fights, like against Gilbert Melendez and stuff. But these guys go for it. Like any opportunity, if you grab their leg, they're like elbowing you. They're trying to latch onto your neck and stuff. And I feel like, yeah, when you kind of go for it, you lose position, you risk losing position, but we go back to the same thing of damage versus control and trying to be opportunistic. Like you're more likely, if you just kind of fall into Merab's world, if you're backpedaling and worried about getting taken down, and even if he struggles to take him down, stacks him against the cage, kind of like the Jose Aldo type of fight we saw between Merab and Jose Aldo, where he couldn't really take him down, but it's like there's no way in hell you can score it for Aldo because he did nothing, right? Merab did nothing, but he stacked him against the cage. He controlled him. So you don't want to fall into that with Merab. Like you need to be opportunistic. So I feel with Corey, especially that he's comfortable with this funky jiu-jitsu, leg locks, arm bars, and whatnot. Yeah, I'd give up a couple of takedowns. Like you got to fight a little bit similar to Jack Della Maddalena does. It's like sprawl and brawl. Like I will get back up. Like I will go right at you. You can try to take me down, but I'm going to get up. Paul Hughes was doing it against Usman Nurmagomedov. Granted, he didn't get his hand raised, but you get where I'm going with this, right? Like Corey Sandhagen absolutely has to go for it with all 8 of his limbs. Like that's the way to beat Merab. Like you can't wait for the kill shot like what Sean O'Malley was doing.
Well, outside of me being an Aldo truther, he did win that fight, Farah. No, I agree with you. Otherwise, I agree with you completely. You hit it. You hit it on the note. You're absolutely right. And these examples that we did bring up, to be fair, they're coming back into play. And you perfectly put it there. So yeah, you don't want to be involved in too much of that kind of fight. So again, spot on analysis there.
I appreciate it. Let's look at some of the individual odds. Merab, the striker, KO plus 700. Merab by submission plus 700. And we've got Merab by decision at minus 250, which obviously clearly seems to be the highest likely option according to the odds. Move over to Corey Sandhagen, plus 700 by decision, plus 2,500 by submission, and plus 800 by knockout. So a lot of money to be made on a Corey Sandhagen win. What do you think?
It's wild. You want to hear something wild that I did though? So I was cruising by the sports book as I tend to do, and those points handicap plays that I just mentioned, they don't offer those at the sports book. So I can't really get action in, and I don't know if I want to put like a whole unit on Corey Sandhagen to win, even though it's a nice number. I don't know if I want to even cut that in half, and maybe I'll do a Merab decision, which wouldn't pay too much, and maybe like a Corey submission, and you're having to pick and choose. Back to Spider-Man, choose Parker, and you're like, I don't know what to choose. So what I did, I actually just took even like less than a unit that I wanted to play. Which like, if it's a number of 10, I took 9 out of the 10 basically. And I sprinkled it on a bunch of different rounds, Farah. I sprinkled it on Merab to win in rounds 3, 4, 5, and Corey between rounds 1 and 4. And all those, if just one of those hit, it's a nice payout. It's a really nice payout because when you go to the sports book houses online, folks and stuff, when you look up the round props, you're going to see really big numbers on the round props, right? And it's really dangerous to play around because you're like, oh, wow, you got to know the exact round. That seems like a needle in a haystack, but there's not many rounds to pick from. These are big numbers. And if you understand the matchup and you know which rounds are air quote the hot rounds, right? Like who's more likely to finish in what rounds. Like Merab is not really a big finishing guy. So if he is going to get the finish, he's going to wear you down. It's probably going to come later, right? And you get better odds on those later numbers. So if that makes sense, those are kind of fun, really degenerate ways to approach it. Not conventional ways, not ways I would recommend. I'm just being honest in some of the fun that I like to have with these big numbers. And this is a fight that could go plenty of different ways.
When you hear Merab say, like, I'm going to strike with him, I want to knock him out, and then you hear Trevor Whitman encouraging Corey to grapple, and then you hear John Wood saying, I can almost guarantee you Corey's going to shoot on us. What do you make of all this stuff? Because it just seems like if I was advising either one of them, not that I'd be the one doing it, I wouldn't tell either one of them. What do you think?
It's tough, it's something you have to take seriously, and it's something they take seriously, right? But it's kind of like, dating in the courting process, right? Which is also something you should be we should all take seriously. But, we say a lot of things, right? We say a lot of things when we're in that courting process, before we get to the dance, like, oh, I'm all about this. Of course I am. And the other person's like, oh, that's great. Well, I'm all about this. And we don't really know though, right? Until they actually get together. So these talking points are always normal. It's almost part of the game, if you will, right? The coaches definitely are a little more pragmatic about it, but at the same time, we've seen this kind of talk before. You talk up your weaknesses, and vice versa on the other side, right? It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine Merab striking first to get a feel because obviously maybe he doesn't want to dive at Corey right away because you can catch a knee, you can catch something from Sandhagen, so you want to kind of figure out the timing and stuff. So yeah, it's not an impossible visual to see Merab standing and striking a little bit. Whereas Corey, it's like, why would you want to zap your cardio? Like, he's generally had good cardio, but it's exhausting when you're fighting. Like, we saw that against Umar and Magomedov, where he was doing better earlier in terms of defending takedowns, but it just, that pace gets a little bit too exhausting for you and you end up getting, so why would you even want to do that? So that I don't believe for a second that Corey is going to shoot. Like, maybe he can, he has trained with Ryan Hall. I don't know if he did for this camp, but he has trained with Ryan Hall before a lot. Like, I can see him being opportunistic perhaps at the end of the rounds, try to latch onto a leg lock or whatnot. But yeah, if you're Corey Sandhagen, I can understand him meeting the grappling head on and trying to offer something dangerous that will make Merab think twice before shooting. But initiating the takedown, I don't know if I had individual odds for that, but whatever they are, even if I could be a billionaire and sail off to the sunset, I wouldn't take those. Let's see though.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true. And I agree. That's a great point about the stamina. You're absolutely right about that because, again, you mentioned the Umar sample that Corey didn't mention. Like, Umar's a really good takedown artist and had really good attempts. And Merab showed really impressive defense in that fight, to your point, Farah. So I completely agree.
And this isn't a John Jones DC situation where their egos are so big, like, I'm gonna take you down to prove a point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't have that on the line.
Yeah, let's talk about another pivotal fight on the main card between Youssef Zalal and Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett said several times this is not the fight that he wanted. He ends up accepting it. I don't think that's necessarily him being scared or whatever. I understand where Josh is coming from. He's getting up there in age. He's fought for the interim title. He feels that perhaps this is his last run, and I don't think he thinks Youssef Zalal is the guy to get him there. It does seem like a matchup that Zalal has a lot more to gain. So totally understand where Josh Emmett is coming from. None of this ducking or scared nonsense, but Zalal's a minus 500 favorite. I mean, Zalal is my guy, the Moroccan devil. Obviously, my mother's Moroccan and all that lovely stuff, but I don't know about minus 500 favorite. That's a little crazy, no?
I always wanted to go there. I planned to go there in 2009, and I got stuck in Spain. Another story for another time. But I'll hit you up for recommendations if I do. But yes, no, absolutely. I totally sentiment with what you're saying there, and you're right. Yeah, it's easy to sentiment with what Josh Emmett was saying. But yes, when you look at the lines, it is a bit wide. And you know what is funny about this fight, Fada, in comparison to what we were just talking about, right? The topic we were just talking about is everybody talking up their weaknesses, right? Like, it's not a weakness. In fact, you better watch out for it, right? Like, what worries me more here is not so much Josh Emmett saying that he doesn't want the fight again. You just explained why that's totally understandable. What worries me here is the TJ Dillashaw training. And I'm not talking about picking on TJ Dillashaw, taking shots at the guy here. I'm talking about specifically what that entails and what Emmett himself says he's focusing on. He's focusing on his power and his conditioning. And if you ever know Josh Emmett, those are two things he's never really had to worry about. So you're like, why? Well, why don't we work more on cage cutting? Why don't we work more on, sharpening your wrestling base to use that more, which, to be fair, he did show more in his last fight against Lerone Murphy, right? And fighters talk a lot. You guys take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, you hear it all the time, Fada, when you're interviewing a fighter. Oh, best camp of my life. Like, are they really going to tell you if it's not, right? And Josh Emmett, he had the line that a lot of older fighters, I'm older, but I'm feeling great. I feel like I'm in my 20s, got some health stuff addressed. And you know what? To his credit, he still looks, say what you will about him, he doesn't look like he's really lost a step. He still struggles to cut the cage, but he's kind of always struggled to do that. And his takedowns and takedown attempts and completions have been vacant for a while now. And he was able to get those back on the board against an undefeated next title challenger, could be future champion pound for pound guy in Lerone Murphy, right? And by the way, remember I just explained that points handicaps, how if you're betting on someone's points handicap in a 5-round fight, what they need to cover. Well, guess who covered their points handicap in another fight with similarly lined odds to this fight was Zalal. Well, that was Josh Emmett. Because the judges, not only did they give him the rounds, if you look at it, Fada, they couldn't even agree on the rounds, right? And we've seen Josh Emmett have these controversial scorecards before with Calvin Kattar, for example. And it goes back to that judging criteria trend we just spoke about, right, Fada, where they're trending toward damage, but sometimes they can overcorrect that steering wheel, right? And they're like, oh, that was a big shot. You're like, was it? Did it even land? And does it really even count? Well, Josh Emmett has the style to make judges ask that. So I'm sorry to be a little long-winded, Fada, but I didn't pick Josh Emmett here. I actually picked Zalal, okay? I did pick the Moroccan Devil, but I like the points handicap here, especially because this is a 3-round fight, meaning, folks, I just explained the 5-round spread, right? Well, the 3-round spreads, it's even easier to hit because for a 3-round points handicap, we don't need Josh Emmett to win. We just need him to not get finished for one, and we need him to win at least 1 round on the judges' scorecards. That's it. He can lose. He just has to win 1 round and not get finished, and that cashes. It's down to plus 100 now. You're not getting great number, but I got it at plus 180, which was just crazy. I think, because I think Josh Emmett's going to be a live dog. He's a lot livelier than the odds suggest. My pick is the Moroccan Devil here. Got to stick with Zalal for the pick.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think it's going to look a lot similar to the Calvin Kattar fight, where Josh is going to want to look for that kill shot, because if he's already not happy with this matchup, he kind of feels like, and he talked about it like, oh, Hunter and Dana, they like knockouts and stuff. If he wants to get out of that category and go back to fighting the big names, he's got to kind of do it impressively. And I think for him, the win over Bryce Mitchell is what did that for him. When he knocked out Bryce Mitchell, it's like, okay, he got Lerone Murphy, somebody in top contention. And I think he's looking at this fight with Youssef Zalal in the same way. Like, if I can knock this guy out, it's back to the upper echelon. So I think for Josh, he's going to really be eager to try to knock him out and find the kill shot. And we know how frustrating that is against a guy like Zalal, who does not stop moving. And it is a 3-round fight, and he doesn't care about the backlash that he got. I thought it was a little unfair because it was only kind of the last round with Calvin Kattar. He fought well the first 2 rounds, but everybody's stuck on that 3rd round. But he's going to have to be on his bicycle this fight. He knows that. But if I'm Josh Emmett, I try to grab a hold of Youssef Zalal and I try to wrestle him. I think, especially if you want to avoid losing a 29-28 decision or get outstruck by numbers, because Youssef Zalal will do this all day. Like, he'll be on his bicycle. Like, he's a high IQ guy. He'll be on his bicycle and he'll pop the jab and run and circle, and he'll do what he needs to do. Like, it's not smart to engage in the pocket with Josh Emmett. Like, no one's going to go out there and encourage you to do that, right? Like, fans might want to see that, but let's be real. If you're on Zalal's side, if you're coaching Zalal, you absolutely have to be on your bicycle and stick and move. And he feels like he could do that all day. So I don't know. How about you? Like for me, Josh Emmett, I think he needs to grapple in this fight if he wants to win.
So that's an interesting point because that crossed my mind too. But another point, you talked about Zalal being underrated for certain things, which I agree. One of the things he is underrated is his grappling, though. So that's interesting. Now, I'm not one that's like, oh, Yair subbed him, so that means Zalal's going to sub him. Again, back to the Glover Teixeira Yuri, it was actually a body shot that's why I'm always batting for the body work. It's so important, folks. It was a body shot that actually allowed that. Like Josh got liver shotted. That's why he went for the takedown against Yair, and he didn't really recover from that. He just kind of let him triangle. I'm not trying to take anything away from the submission. I'm just saying, and Zalal could easily do that too, right? But if Emmett is the one controlling wrestling on his terms, to your point, Farah, that definitely could be something in his back pocket for sure. And I got to say that, you're talking about this matchup being unhappy for Emmett. You could argue that this is a trap match for Zalal with all the crap that he got for just that round 3, like you said. And it's just like, oh man, Zalal's going to want to like shut people up, right? But then what do they give him? They give him the most dangerous guy to do that. This is a trap fight for Zalal,
Yeah, I see your point. It's a good point. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like even though Zalal is a good grappler and he can submit guys and stuff like that, you're going to want to grab a hold of Zalal and just slow him down, like try to muscle him down. You saw that Josh Emmett muscle. He's got so much muscle on it. Like you want to try to muscle Zalal down, just not get stuck, because it gets frustrating when you're just running after someone trying to cut off the cage. And we said that he's had that problem in the past trying to cut off the cage. And Ilya Topuria does it so well, right? Like he's kind of like, he cuts off the cage so well. With Josh Emmett, it's almost like a lunging overhand every time that sometimes can appear a little telegraphed because you know what he wants to do, right? So yeah, I'm going as Zalal 29-28. I feel like Josh might have a round where we get those ooh and ah moments where he almost like takes his head off or whatnot and lands a couple of strikes. But I'm going Zalal by decision, which is minus 200. There's exactly money to be made there. Yeah, minus 200 really. Zalal by decision, plus 400 by submission, and then by knockout is plus 1,000. And then Emmett, on the other hand, plus 625 by knockout, plus 3,500 submission, and plus 750 by decision. So if you're a big believer in Emmett and we know he can shut anyone's lights out, plus 625 is quite a tempting bet to take. But I like the minus 200 Zalal by decision.
I think those are the two top choices. You nailed it. Those are the two top choices for different reasons.
Yep. What else do we got here? Abus Magomedov, Joe Pifer, another fight that someone didn't want. Like Pifer kind of wants to tell everybody his reasoning, and he said he asked for it now because prior to Clevin Gastelum, he was offered Abus Magomedov, and now he asked for he declined him, but now he asked for him. How much of a believer are you in Joe Pifer? Like, do you see the potential? Do you feel like this guy could be a player at 185 pounds? Obviously, the loss to Hermanson was quite a bad one. But outside of that, are you a believer in Joe Pifer?
I'm a believer in a lot of things. We could have a private chatter waiting in the wings for us, Farah, who could be a believer on one side or the other. But as far as what I'm a believer in, I was probably one of the bigger believers, I would say, in Joe Pifer. You could say I was a Joe Piper defender. Not of things he says outside the octagon, of course. I'm talking about his fighting style, right? And his potential. I know he's Dana White's boy, but I like the grappling and wrestling upside that nobody really talked about. But man, between his pacing, performances, not going to these underrated skills that he's clearly been working on with the guys from Philly and even outside of his fights, has really tempered my enthusiasm for Piper. And I actually feel like Abus Magomedov has done the opposite. He's had bad cardio and questionable spots as well, but he's been showing improvements since moving training camp to South Florida, American top team. And I don't feel like this should be that wide of a fight, regardless of who you favor. But I officially picked the underdog here. I put my big boy pants on. I got Magomedov.
Let's see the odds for this fight. Minus 250 favorite is Pifer over a plus 200 Abus Magomedov. But before we break down further, we've got George who's going to join us. Let's get his take. What's up, George? How's it going?
Great. How you guys doing? I'm really, really enjoying the show. You guys are getting me pumped up. I mean, I've been pumped up all week, but this is what I needed just to close strong, just to hear different takes from experts like you guys.
Well, I appreciate it. Are you a believer in Joe Pifer, George, or are you going an underdog?
I still need 1 or 2 more fights, because when I get asked that question, I wonder if they mean to win it all and to be a champ one day, or just is he legit? Because is he legit? Yeah, he's legit for sure.
Can he be a player? Can he be a player?
I don't know, and I think it's not the physical skills; it's the mental. Like he had to get off social media. Mexico didn't go well for him. There's times where he humbled himself a tad after he won the Gastelum fight when they did fight. And then afterwards, I want to take this back. I was misquoted. I was this, I was that. Bro, just focus on fighting. Stop worrying about some of that other stuff. And let's see how far you can take those natural gifts that he does have. He's a powerhouse.
He is. And Pifer, I don't know, who did you pick, George? Did you pick Pifer or Abu?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pifer on this. I'm glad Dan brought up my Magomedov's cardio issues a little bit. He does have those. And of course, Pifer's also slowed down in some of his fights too, but I still think the American gets it done in this one. And I wanted to ask you guys, if you don't mind, a quick pivot, because I heard all you guys' breakdowns. Hey, is this the one fight card that we almost just go, give me every dog? I've tried so many strategies over the years,
Yes,
and I just get slapped around. Every once in a while, I want an envelope under the pumpkin here for Halloween, from my bookie, so I can spend some money, and it hasn't been going my way. But Dan, Farah, is this the time where we just go, give me 100 on every on every dog?
I'll give you the big underdogs here. So we can go start of the card, Brogan Walker, who's a minus 500, I believe, plus 550 underdog against a minus 800 Veronica Hardy. That Ramiz Brahimaj, Austin Vanderford's a minus 300 favorite over Ramiz Brahimaj at plus 240. Quite a lot of big underdogs. I don't even want to look at Gutierrez. Yeah, he's probably something.
now he's barking for the dogs.
See, the dogs are barking. This is underdog.
Yeah, underdogs. There we go. Speaking of it, I don't know if you guys are crazy enough to put money on this. I haven't even seen it yet, but I guarantee it's going to be something absurd. Yeah, there you go. Minus 2,000. Gautier.
Insane.
Yeah,
insane. To your point, George, it is though. Like the main card, I picked 3 out of 5 underdogs, which is a lot. It's the only official underdogs I picked in the card. For example, folks, average underdogs that come through on a UFC card is 3 to 4. 3 to 4, right? That's the average for your 12 to 14 fight card. 3 to 4 underdogs across the board. I don't know why it works out that way. It just does. And I don't even try to hit that, but I try to. But my average ends up being that. It's not right, but that's what I try to end up at. But to your point, George, the 2 underdogs I didn't pick officially were Corey Sandhagen and Josh Emmett, but their odds are so good that you could justify playing them even if you're not picking them. And I did play them. I played their points handicap props, right, where they don't necessarily have to win. So if you count that, I actually have action on all the underdogs on the main card. To your point, George, because how do you say no? Right? How do you say no to some of these guys?
Exactly. This has been a really, really bizarre card to break down.
But the odds are a bit weird. Like, even if you look at the prelims, like Farid Basharat's at minus 500 over Chris Gutierrez at plus 375. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've picked these people, but it's not like, I don't know. The odds seem a little bit crazy in my opinion. Like, Zalal's my guy, but minus 500 over Josh Emmett. Like, although I picked him to win, but like, Patchy Mix is a minus 325 favorite. Let's talk about him a little bit. Obviously, the UFC debut didn't go. Mario Batista is very good, but I think it was more to do with what we saw out of Patchy. And I know he got a lot of stick, but at the end of the day, if you look at his resume, he's beat a lot of legit guys. Like I used the Aaron Pico comparison where Aaron Pico was saying a lot of bold stuff, but if you look at Aaron Pico's resume, he hasn't really done much, right? He didn't even hit the upper echelon of Bellator. He's just kind of like a wonder kid who's got a great wrestling background and great boxing and a future, like touted as a future champion. So I think on paper, he's all pretty, but like when you look at his resume, he didn't have it. Patchy Mix, on the other hand, I know he got a lot of stick, but the guy had the resume, right? Like he beat some legit guys. He was a champion at Bellator. I know he didn't deliver in his debut, but how much pressure do you guys think is on him? And he is still a minus 325 favorite, but what do you think of this matchup? Because you go from Mario Batista, who's perhaps on the verge of a number 1 contender fight, to a newcomer now.
I'll let Dan go first. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, George. This is interesting. So money is coming in on Patchy. I think people weren't, you wonder, are people going to be mad because they got burned, betting on him, or their expectations? I thought he was better than that, but money is trickling in on him in this spot because it does seem like a spot where he can win. Now, Wicklax is Ioane and Jacek managed product. He won the title over there in KSW. But KSW, as we've seen, there's a lot of rematches. We joke about the UFC having a lot of rematches. Like he fought the same guy like 4 times basically for the title, Prisbic or whatever, and Prisby or whatever. But it's not even it's not even like the greatest sample sizes over there. And the kid looks like he's a good action fighter, but his wrestling and durability isn't there. And against Patchy, who's shown he can knock you out, not just submit you. I don't think that's great. So it could be a bounce back spot for Patchy, but boy, did they bury him on the prelims, huh, George?
They sure did. And like Farah said, he was an undisputed champion with title defenses. He won a Grand Prix, won a Millie. So yeah, I mean, this guy's proven himself against good fighters, as good of a resume you can compile prior to getting to the UFC. It's just that, wow, I mean, he was just a deer in headlights against Mario Batista. Nothing was working, and I know Mario Batista is all that as well. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Patchy Mix trails him by that much. And so I think he will bounce back, honestly. A lot of pressure on that power couple. Suarez had a rough start to the year as well. Yeah. She came back, and now let's see if Mix can do the same thing. But I wouldn't bet Mix, but it's not because I don't think he can win. It's just I got to see, can he get out of whatever happened on that night? We don't talk much about octagon jitters. I don't know if because these fighters are so seasoned nowadays, it doesn't get to them as much. Who knows? But it could have just been that, and maybe he shakes them off. But you just can't bet them. But if you ask me who's going to win, I think it's going to be Mix.
I'll give you guys some individual odds. We got Patchy by knockout at plus 800, by submission at plus 175, and by decision at plus 125. And then Wicklax by decision is plus 400, by submission plus 1,000. Granted, most of his wins have come by submission, but obviously Patchy's a great grappler. And then plus 2,200 by knockout. So, but I think Patchy's got to do more than a decision. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think he needs to finish this guy. If people are going to get back on the Patchy train or get on the Patchy train in the first place, I think he needs to finish this fight. How about you guys?
I agree. I think, like I say, you kind of take the interviews with a grain of salt, what the fighters say all the time. You guys hear the same lines fed to you all the time. But Patchy really wants this finish, and I really believe that he does. And for his career, it really makes sense. You got to be able to finish guys like this. I think a lot of it also was short notice. But to George's point, it is tougher to back Patchy now that he's over 3-1. I parlayed him with Puna earlier in the week where it was reasonable, even money. And I actually got the Patchy Mix by submission in my round robin and some little degenerate action there for plus money because I think it's going to be there. This guy, Wicklax, he likes to shoot a lot. And if he's tired, he looked rough on the scales yesterday. Let's see his octagon jitters, right? To Gigi's point, I think there's going to be some sloppy shots in there. And most of Patchy's submission wins are from that front headlock. So I hope he locks something up for my sake.
Yeah, and that's how you can get the odds down. I think Mix by submission, something he's been very good at. Something that I think, a lot of times when your back's to the wall, you're going to go with more of the, where are you best at, right? Where are my meat and potatoes? And for him, it's, take down, back take, and work for a submission. So I think he'll go there. I mean, he was very proud of his Stotts KO. He needed something like that just to say, hey, I got other weapons too. But this is where his bread's buttered.
Yeah, and we've got to wrap up real soon because the fights are going to start in a couple of minutes. We got a lot of Vegas boys on this card. I know it is a Vegas card, but Edmund Shabazian, Puna Soriano, I know you guys have spent time like at the gym with them, Dan. Like you guys have been around those guys a lot. Anyone you want to highlight? I mean, Shabazian is always interesting. He has so much potential coming into his UFC career. Didn't really live up to it, but he's back on a winning streak. He's a favorite. Puna Soriano is a favorite. Any one on the prelims that you want to highlight or you're excited to watch? Both of you, give me your answer.
I'm curious if George is on anything on those fights, but with the Edmund fight, I like the fight to end in round 2 / Edmund to win in round 2. I know round 1's usually the hot round there, but he's been a little more composed after working with Extreme Couture. And then shout out to my guy Puna. I said I got him in a parlay, but I didn't really touch him outside of that. I don't know if it's by decision or knockout or what, but good highlights there. George, anything on those or anything else you like, buddy?
I'm going to ride the Puna train because I really tried my best to help him, convince him to come down to welterweight. He started well at middleweight, 3-0, I think. Then he lost 4 or 5, and I would always ask him that. He wrestled in Hawaii, so he's not scared to get in that sauna and, and test the body. And and push himself, right? And I'm glad that he has. He just seems very more happy here. I think the power obviously transitions well. So I like Puna there by KO. I can't wait to see what his post-fight celebrations like. I'm not saying I would. I wouldn't partake in some of the ones he's done, but yeah, I'll be rooting for him.
Yeah, well,
he pushes the limits.
That's awesome. He lets it come to him. He just lets it come to him, and he goes with it.
Well, we'll wrap up here, boys, because obviously Georgian Goes, don't forget, join them 8 p.m. Eastern for the watch along. We've got you covered on MMA Junkie. We've got Mike and Kenny on side. I'll be writing some recaps. Dan Tom did some great breakdowns. Check those out before the main card and all the good stuff starts. But guys, I appreciate you guys joining. Thank you very much. Again, one final reminder, 8 p.m. Eastern. Have some fun with Georgian Goes for the watch along. Appreciate it, guys.